Business Spotlight, brought to you by Cross Rhythms and Baba Baboon.
I'm Sonya and welcome to Business Spotlight in partnership with Cross Rhythms City Radio and Baba Baboon. Joining me in the studio this week, we've got Sandra Brookes and Pete Ball from Bluebell Business. Hello, how are you two today?
Really good, thank you.
Good. How are you, Pete?
Me too.
Really good. I'm fine, thanks for asking. I'm joking. Well, thank you so much for coming into the studio. It's an absolute joy to have you in here with me, here in the Cross Rhythms studios. So Sandra, Peter, you've got a wealth of experience in business, and after around 4 decades, I do believe, working with high-profile corporates yourselves, you then went on together as business partners and set up your own consultancy, which is known by the name of Bluebell Business. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about why this came about and what does Bluebell Business mean to others?
Well, how did it come about? Well, my background, as is Sandra's, is in banking. Mm-hmm. And we worked for NatWest Bank and we were trained very well. Long story short, after about 30 years, I left, and similarly for you. Mm-hmm. And I invited Sandra to join me and set up this business, which is a consultancy business to help people who are setting up in business.
Mm-hmm. Was it, to do that as well, to help people set up in business, but for yourselves, you took the leap. And how did you find it, if you can go back all those years ago, because I know you've been going for quite a long time now, but how did you find it yourselves? Do you remember that first day when you set off on your own?
Excited.
Were you?
Yeah, I was, yeah.
Good.
And the best thing I ever did. I don't know what you feel, Sandra.
Yeah, I totally agree, actually. It was very exciting, daunting, because we'd obviously seen lots of people start up in business, and some were very successful and others weren't. But we felt very strongly that we had something to offer other people when they were starting their new businesses, and that's actually turned out to already, it's nearly 14 years that we've been together in our business partnership, and we've enjoyed every minute, I think, all but a few, which is more to do with our internal systems and getting them right than it has been about working with people. That's been great all along. And
over all those years, like you say, setting up 2010, what have you seen from startups within the local area? What have been their sort of main problems, do you think?
Well, actually, the things that we see is that initially people hadn't got a step-by-step guide to help them set up. They didn't know the formalities of how they needed to go through the process of getting themselves registered with HMRC and various other items they had to deal with. But also, every entrepreneur has their own doubts. A lot of them have imposter syndrome, where they don't think they're good enough and they don't know how to get out of that problem that they have. And for us, those were the main things that we wanted to help people with initially, and then carry on and work with them to build their businesses.
And Pete, just coming in there for you as well, talking about imposter syndrome, again, not even knowing where to turn. It is quite daunting. It is very scary. Not only are you on your own, and sometimes when you've been going for a few years, you can still feel isolated and quite alone in business as well. But for you, Pete, and your experiences, what you can share, as well as Sandra's, how did you feel about helping others? And is it almost like a mentor sort of ship as well, that you can take over and to bring these people out of the shell, so to speak?
Yeah, one of the things, and you mentioned it, really is when you set up in business, a lot of people have been employed before and they enjoy the camaraderie of employment. And then all of a sudden it sounds great, and you're on your own and it can be lonely. So in addition to what Sandra said about the legalities, the formalities, etc., one of the big things is lack of self-confidence and self-belief. So we do focus very much on that too, because we need to get the business owner right in order for the business to be right.
Yeah, definitely. 100% agree with that. I'm totally relatable. I'm totally honest with you. I'm not going to lie. It is, and it is like, not only scary, but it is when you've been working in the field that you go in to do even business in. Yes, you might know your profession, but when you're going into business, you're like, well, for me personally, I'll tell you, when I started, I'd got media contacts, I'd got various other contacts, but we've got no business contacts. So what was really quite daunting for me was networking. Do you go through that process as well with startups?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Yes, we do. But am I allowed to mention at this point the second book we're writing?
Not yet. We'll come to that in a minute, Pete. Don't rush.
Park it then.
Okay,
but yes, the answer is we do.
Yeah, brilliant. Because that again, I used to go out networking. My confidence wasn't up there at all, and I'd go home and almost cry sometimes. Because you'd be like, "Oh, nobody understands me. I don't understand what I'm saying," and all those sorts of things. So everything that you're saying, I can see is totally, relatable as well, and how it can help others. Whether you're a startup business, no matter what age you are either.
No,
but going along to, the entrepreneur side of things, we've got a massive community in Staffordshire, I believe, who are all, that entrepreneurial spirit. And something that you have done actually links in to the first book that you mentioned, that you launched. Was it a couple of years ago now?
November 21.
November 21. Gosh, that's flown by.
I know it has, actually.
So why did you decide to provide this resource in the format of a book?
Well, I think that we had looked at books on the marketplace written by entrepreneurs. And often they're great books, but they didn't give a guide to someone else who wanted to emulate them. They're more about, this is how I made my money. And Pete and I were, for a long time, were saying, we really need to write a book. We really do. And it just didn't happen until March 2020.
Just as lockdowns happened.
And that was was very fateful, wasn't it, Pete? Do you want to say why it was fateful?
Yeah, it was fateful. I remember we wanted to help people. That was a passion for both of us, particularly in the startup arena. And what we had in mind was producing fact sheets to help people. And I can remember meeting a lady at the Chamber of Commerce called Dr. Emmy
Vida Estesio.
Thank you.
Author.
Yeah, and she was a publisher, a self-published author. And I remember driving along day 53, and Sandra phoned me, and I said, Sandra, I've cracked it. I know exactly what we're going to do. We're going to write a book. And Sandra said, great.
Yeah.
So it was fateful in that sense that we met Dr. Emmy, but it really helped us.
And the timing was fateful because we were just going into lockdown. So we had the time to do it, whereas normally it would have been a real challenge. Any entrepreneur knows that you go from one thing to another, and on this occasion we were able to take the time out to write the book and put that guide into the market that we didn't believe was ever there.
What was really interesting for both of us, we always expound the virtues of market research in business startup, and obviously we conducted market research ourselves. And one thing that we hadn't thought of that really jumped out, and there was a pattern, that when we did our research, what people were looking for is worksheets to work on in order to produce a business plan that was fit for purpose. And this wasn't in isolation. There was a pattern here, which is why we decided to have the website sitting alongside the book with downloadable documents. And the way it works is you read a chapter, you have the document by the side of you and you fill it in, and these documents come together to produce the business plan. So it's interesting when you do market research, things come out of the blue when you ask these questions that you don't anticipate. But that's why we've got the book and the website running side by side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's Start a Small UK Business. So we've talked about how it's come about, and over the past sort of few years, you know, where it's been, where this book has gone. We talked about the entrepreneurs, and I do believe, again, you know, there is a link not only with the Staffordshire Chambers of Commerce, and obviously both of you, you know, the pair of you are also linked there with different workshops that you will do as well with startups, but also our local universities, Keele University and Staffordshire University. How has that resource helped with those sort of organisations?
Well, certainly Staff's University has been very, very receptive to using the book, and Pete often pops in and does some, work with them in terms of, all the different workshops that we run. Is
that with the Peter Coates, the MSc?
Yeah, the Peter Coates MSc too. Yeah. They've been very, very supportive, as of course have the Staffordshire Chambers of Commerce have been brilliant with all their startup courses. And Keele also have been working with the book as well. They've done it in a different way, like a digital way, but we've been very supported by the local community of universities and other business support teams. So, we've been really, really very happy and very supported by them.
And with, Pete, just coming back to you with the website that you mentioned as well, having the hard copy as a book, the digital format even, on the website and online, and all the different ways in which you can access different resources. I mean, the feedback that I imagine that you must have had since it's been going out, what would you say, or can you say, what has been the biggest benefit that people have gained from using it?
The resource and the website, the fact to work side by side, that's the feedback. And how
your
helpful
expertise.
It's been. Yeah, and the fact, when we wrote the book, when we did, coming back to the market research, the feedback we had was, it shouldn't be full of jargon, like if you go to see an accountant, because you can walk out of an accountant feeling like, I need a beer. So what we did, the bywords we used were simple, focused and effective, and we kept it that way too.
Yeah. And sometimes again, the language which is used, like you say, when you're starting off in business and you're trying to find access to certain things, it can just go straight over your head. So you feel, the pair of you, you feel that was a main sort of core sort of, value as well with the book?
I believe very much so. And also, we've had a number of 5-star reviews on Amazon, which is where the book is published. And we've had professors, we've had a psychologist from the USA who's given us a 5-star review and said it had changed her business because she'd never had time to sort of look into how to improve her business, and she's using our startup book for UK businesses to help her do that, which is amazing. And it feels so good when you see that these people who are professors and psychologists and all sorts of people are saying, I really got a lot of value out of this book. But just going back to the digital and the paperback, 98% of the books that we have sold are actually paperback, which I think is a big thing to say, because that's most of the people in the universities and everything want to have the actual book itself rather than the digital version of it.
So let's talk about the future. So how do you perceive, or how do you see the future of startups in Staffordshire?
I think it's very promising, really. Just to quote, the number of people generally thinking about starting a business in 2024 has risen to 35%, which is an increase of 5% in 2023. So there's certainly an appetite out there. In terms of the book, going back to it, what we've just done is we've rewritten the first book on feedback that we've had. So we do listen to the people and we act upon it, and that's going to be launched fairly shortly, I would say.
Yes, pretty shortly now, yeah.
So I think a lot of people are thinking about it, and also a lot of people are doing self-employment and employment side by side. Side hustling, they've got the security of the employment and they want to dip the toe in the water for self-employment and then make a choice whether to stay or to jump. So the future is promising, definitely.
So do you think that's, I mean, again, just going back to your experience and when you started off in business as well, but also your corporate experience, how do you think, people who are going into self-employment and want to be self-employed, should I say, how do you think it has changed and evolved over the years?
Gosh, that is an interesting question. I think there's more digital help now. Of course, there's social media. There's all those technological things that have happened since we first started. It was a lot, it was mainly paper and ink in those days, and I think that helps people because they've got a wider reach, they've got a world wide web. The internet was hardly with us in our early days, and so all of that I think is helping entrepreneurs now. And of course, we hope our book is too.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And the future then, we've talked about one book, we've talked about the future of, business and startups coming through. What about the future for Bluebell Business?
Well,
silence.
We are probably 2/3 of the way through book 2.
Oh, here we go.
Here's book 2. What we decided, the people who've read book 1 and started their own businesses, they did say to us, again, feedback, can we have, how do you grow your business? So we've started, we're about 2/3 of the way through, as I've said, but we've also been adding not just how you grow your business, but how you grow yourself as an entrepreneur. And so there's lots and lots of information in book 2 about that. We're very, very pleased that people are still, I've let some people early read the book 2 up to date, just because it's helping them to start their business off a bit more quickly or improve it better now. So,
and also the style will be mirrored on book 1 as well. Simple, focused and effective, and it will have the resource of the website sitting alongside it.
Brilliant. No, I like the sound of it. Now, before you go anywhere, I'm just going to ask you one last question each, if that's okay.
Of course.
So somebody's out there listening, tuning in or watching the video online, and they are thinking about starting off in their own business, or like you said, Peter, earlier, there could be an employment and maybe looking for a little side hustle just to see how things go. What would you say to them right now?
First things first, go to your local Chamber of Commerce where we both work, and secondly, buy the book on Amazon and read it.
Sandra?
I think it's really exciting if people are looking to do that. I read that 50% of under 35s have got a side hustle, and you do definitely need help and support. And I agree with Pete that there are so many areas in this city where you can get help and support starting up. They should just come along to those places and get their businesses up and running. So they add to the over 4,000 that we already have, helped and supported to grow.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sandra Brookes and Pete Bull there from Bluebell Business. I'm Sonya Farrell. This is Business Spotlight in partnership with Cross Rhythm City Radio and Baba Baboon.
Business Spotlight, shining a light on our local business community. Brought to you by Cross Rhythms and Baba Baboon.